There comes a moment in a man's life, often invisible to others, where he awakens to a truth so sharp that it cuts through every illusion he has ever held. And in that moment, he stops waiting for sympathy. He stops expecting the world to care about his wounds, his pain, his struggles, his long nights of suffering, his countless sacrifices. And instead, he begins to see reality in its most unforgiving clarity, realizing that no one truly cares, not consistently, not deeply, not in the way he once wished they did. And it is at that point where something dies inside him, but something far more powerful is born, a new state of existence that is not chained to the emotional weather of others, but grounded in an inner fortress that no storm can break. When you first face this reality, it feels brutal, it feels cold, it feels like you've been abandoned in the middle of a vast desert with nothing but silence surrounding you, and your instincts scream for comfort, for someone to reach out, for someone to notice that you are bleeding, yet no one does, because the truth is that people only care when it serves them. They care when your suffering becomes their entertainment, when your success becomes their ladder, when your failure becomes their chance to feel superior. But they do not care for you, not for your essence, not for your inner battles. And when you cling to hope that they will, you build a life on a sinkhole that will eventually collapse, leaving you buried under the rubble of false expectations. Machiavelli understood this long before modern men began posting their wounds online, long before sympathy became a currency traded in comment sections and hollow gestures. Because he saw through human nature, he saw that men are selfish, that alliances are temporary, that loyalty is conditional, and that power belongs not to the man who is loved, but to the man who does not need to be loved. Because a man who can move without applause, without pity, without validation, is the man who can never be controlled, and that indifference becomes the seed of his true strength. It may sound merciless, it may sound cruel, but it is not cruelty, it is clarity. Because once you bury the childish fantasy that the world should care about you simply because you suffer, you free yourself from the most invisible chain of all, the chain of expectation. And when that chain breaks, you stop waiting, you stop begging, you stop delaying your evolution, and you begin to move with a rhythm that is no longer tied to the approval of others. A rhythm forged in silence, in solitude, in the stillness of man who has chosen to suffer without theatrics, endure without applause, and bleed without an audience. Most men never reach this stage because they are addicted to performance of pain. They broadcast their wounds dressed in poetry. They share their struggles in hopes of being told they are strong. They speak of resilience while trembling under the weight of loneliness. They want the appearance of toughness but the comfort of sympathy. Yet Machiavelli would say that every display of suffering is a transaction, and the more you advertise it, the cheaper you become in the eyes of others. Because people stop seeing your strength and start seeing your need, and once they sense that need, your power dissolves. To live in Machiavelli's Stoic reality is to accept that you must reveal nothing unless it serves your strategy. You must act as though no one cares, even when part of you still wishes they did. Because the discipline of indifference transforms you into a different kind of figure. A man who no longer leans on invisible support, but walks through fire alone. A man who becomes magnetic precisely because he does not chase attention. And when people see that you genuinely do not need them, their posture changes, their tone shifts, their respect grows. And ironically, when you no longer care whether people care about you, they begin to notice you, to follow you, to chase your approval. Because indifference, real indifference, is rare, and what is rare unsettles the masses. Think of the rulers, the conquerors, the thinkers who reshaped history. They were not remembered because they begged for pity, but because they embodied resilience that required no applause, strength that revealed itself in silence, power that did not tremble when ignored. And that is the essence of Machiavelli's Stoic reality. The recognition that dependence repels power, while independence attracts it. That the man who does not need affection commands it, and the man who no longer seeks care gains influence without asking. The transformation is not easy, it feels like death, because part of you does die. The part that rages when ignored, the part that aches to be understood, the part that trembles when applause is absent, and in its place a terrifying calmness rises, a stillness that makes others uneasy, because they can sense that you are not bargaining for approval, you are not performing for attention, you are not seeking shelter in their comfort. You have become your own fortress, your own weapon, your own source of validation. And that kind of man cannot be ignored, cannot be diminished, cannot be broken by silence. Once you accept that no one cares, your losses become private. Your growth becomes invisible. Your ambition becomes surgical. You build in silence. You endure in silence. And then one day you emerge transformed, and the same people who once ignored you, who walked past your struggles without slowing down, are suddenly confronted with force they cannot explain, a presence they cannot dismiss, because while they were busy chasing sympathy, you were forging yourself in solitude, and now you move, like a ghost through fire, untouched, untouchable, unshaken. The paradox is brutal yet undeniable. The less you need the world, the more the world begins to need you. The less you perform for affection, the more affection chases you. The less you seek loyalty, the more loyalty finds you. Because people are drawn to those who are emotionally self-sufficient, those who are not swayed by moods, those who do not tremble under neglect. And when they sense that stability, they respect it, they fear it, they are commanded by it. Because true power does not shout, it does not beg, it does not collapse. It simply stands silent, composed, indifferent. And in that silence lies something more magnetic than any performance of strength could ever achieve. Machiavelli's Stoic reality is not about hating the world. It is not about closing your heart in bitterness. It is about clarity, about understanding that if your power depends on the affection of others, it is borrowed power, fragile, temporary, vulnerable to the fickle moods of the crowd. But if your power comes from within, if it is rooted in indifference to whether they cheer or jeer, then it is untouchable, unshakable, eternal. And that is the only kind of power worth having, the kind that endures when sympathy fades, the kind that stands when applause dies, the kind that commands even in silence. And so the choice stands before every man: to resent the world for not caring, or to rise because it does not care, to soak in the ruins of false expectations, or to carve those ruins into the foundation of fortress, to remain addicted to pity, or to transform into a figure that no pity can control. And those who choose the latter discover what Machiavelli knew, that freedom begins the moment you stop needing to be cared for.